such as racism, power imbalances, and poverty. These oppressive factors, as well as inequities across the social determinants of health, substantially and disparately impact the health and life outcomes of marginalized and vulnerable communities. This is the fifth meeting? The fifth of 8 exciting, informative webinars. Each webinar will have 2 presenters cover key social determinants of health. The webinars will last for about an hour and a half. The presentations will be followed by 30 minutes of Q&A. The webinars will be recorded and available for you to review. Our presenters are both experts in their fields and leaders and representatives of our community, and will share with you the inequities, challenges, and opportunities in our health system. You'll be assigned some pre-work to do before each webinar. I think you were supposed to read Farming While Black. My reminder to you today, as on every Monday, that knowledge is power. Our webinar topic is food justice, dismantling the apartheid food system. The presenters are Katara Jordan and Sharon Fraser. And Ola, you've already introduced ourselves. She's the, I don't know if you said you're the Health Equity Fellowship Project Director. So I'm gonna start with Katarah. Go for it. Unmute yourself.
Hello. Thank you very much, Ola. Thank you, Julie, for having me today. Thank you all for taking time out of the middle of your day to have this discussion. This is a very, very important discussion. And you find that people love talking about food when it's community or what we're having for dinner or, you know, what we're growing in our garden. But when we start bringing up words like insecurity and hunger and poor and inequity, people don't really like talking about food. When we start talking about those words or adding those additional, you know, parts of the system, of the food system to the conversation. So I am very happy that you all thought it was important enough to take the time to come here and sit with me and Sharon and learn, you know, a little more in depth about how the food system affects Black and Brown communities. So I am super excited that I was paired up with the talented Sharon Fraser. I would not want to be with anyone else talking about this issue. She is a mentor, teacher, just a guru. She is our community nutritional educator. And I am very happy just to be here with her. And yeah, we're gonna get started. I do have a PowerPoint, so I'm gonna share my screen with you, but I want you to ask questions, stop me whenever, raise your hand. I want, you know, everyone to give their input. This is not just going to be me spieling out. So if you want any more, you know, something in depth or you have experience around what I'm talking about, please raise your hand. We want to hear all of that good stuff.
Oh, wait a minute.
What?
Stop. I forgot to read your bio.
I was wondering that, but it's okay.
Oh my God, can I just take 2 minutes to do that?
Of course, I'll mute myself. Go ahead.
Okay, I'm so sorry. I spaced out. Sorry, everyone. In case you didn't know, the famous Katara Jordan joined the Second Harvest Food Bank as director at a critical time in late March in the midst of the COVID-19 pandemic. Asked why she was interested in the position at Second Harvest, Katara responded, "Food justice. I don't believe anyone should go hungry in our world." She believes nutritious meals are a right, not a privilege, and learned that firsthand as a child whose mother works 60 hours a week, but still needs assistance from time to time. Her journey was one of love and support. She has a mother who worked extremely hard to make sure she had access to all of the opportunities needed to break generational curses and build a strong legacy. She was not born into much privilege, but hard work and networking were instilled in her since a young age. She says, "I've worked to overcome the barriers of racism, ageism, and sexism as a young Black woman in America." Katara hopes to center the conversation around food inequity and compassion and leverage her position to address structural issues such as food access, education, and discrimination. Katarah received her master's in education from East Stroudsburg University. She is a certified master gardener, and her passions lie in the soil. She says, "If I could teach anything, it would be to teach people to grow their own food." When she's not on the job, she enjoys spending time with her family, tending to her garden daily, and traveling as much as possible. Thanks for being here, Katarah.
Oh, what a wonderful introduction. Thank you, Julie. Thank you, thank you. It's okay, it's okay. All right, so we are going to get into it, and I'm going to share my screen here. Are we good? Everyone can see? Good. Okay. So we are here today to talk about food justice. So what's at the root of this issue? Food, of course. Like I said, that is what we are here to discuss and talk about. Or better said, the lack of access to affordable, healthy food options for Black communities across the country. Now, as we all know, there's a staggeringly disproportionate number when compared to white communities. So that's what we're here to discuss today. I'm here to give you some background on unhealthy food system that plagues our communities. I'm here to share some facts around the food systems that currently exist. And I'm here to brainstorm with you hyper-locally around the struggles of our community and what we can do to help. What is our part in this whole picture? We're going to start with the food desert. A food desert is a low-income census tract where either a substantial number or share of residents has low access to supermarkets or large grocery stores. So low income means, I know most of you are in this field, low income means 20% or more of individuals are below the federal poverty line. A low income census tract in any tract in which 33% of population is over a mile from a grocery store in urban areas or 10 miles in rural areas. Many argue that the goal and the approach are off when talking about food deserts. So I know that's been a word that I'm sure you guys have heard over the years. The definition has kind of been tweaked and changed. You hear it come from USDA, from a lot of different sources, but we're thinking that the approach is off when we're talking about food deserts. If the government is really trying to define these spaces in an effort to create policies that will increase food access, food security, nutrition, health, then we need to maybe look at a different word or a different approach to food deserts. I did put this slide in here. It's just a little facts about food desert to give you kind of the framework as to where we stand and what it looks like. So 23.5 million people live in urban neighborhoods in rural towns with limited access to fresh, affordable, healthy food. And that's according to USDA. Food deserts can be problematic, of course, in a ton of different ways. Of course, food is more expensive in corner stores than in regular grocery stores. Food isn't as healthy in corner stores. Individuals living in urban and rural areas may have trouble getting to the food supply. So I have 150 to 200 jobs can be created if they were to add large grocery markets and stores to these urban areas. So that's just kind of a framework to look at, what food deserts are, some statistics in there. Of course, people of the poorest social economic status have 2.5 times the exposure to fast food restaurants compared to those living in the wealthiest of areas. So the numbers are staggering. You'll definitely, you'll see them pop up in a bunch of different places, but that just puts some context around how major of an issue this is. There are two main focuses or factors, leading to food hardship. Those two main factors are, of course, income and access. Food deserts reflect a geographic lack of access to enough healthy, nutritious food. They indicate areas with high level of potential for food insecurity. So I'm just going to break it down a little bit for you. In urban environments, they may not have access to healthy food and community because the client might not have a car to get to the grocery store. So we understand that. We know urban context, people don't have the transportation to get to where they need to go. In agricultural communities or rural communities, they may live where the food is grown. So of course they should have access. They live where it's grown. Why don't they have access to healthy options? But we are seeing that they aren't paid a wage that is sufficient for them to be able to even buy those foods. So that's their problem in the agricultural rural community. And then we look in the suburban community, which is where many of us live. It might just be that the family is not able to provide. So I know we kind of went over food desert. Now I'm going to talk a little bit about food apartheid. So rather than see a lack of affordable fresh food as a geographic problem or a desert, like we've been, used to hearing, the word apartheid points to the social and economic roots. So that's where we really want to hone into. How did the system, or why is the system so flawed, and where did it come from? So structural oppression based on race and class that limits access to power and resources related to food and land result in poor health and, of course, poor people. A family can live right next to a grocery store but still be hungry without enough income. But when lack of access combines with barriers to income, it may become a daily challenge for people to know or understand where their next meal is coming from. Any questions? Ola, Julie, you see any hands? I'm good to keep going?
I don't see any hands.
We're good, okay. So supermarkets are leaving many neighborhoods and regions in what's often called a food vacuum. As grocery stores consolidate, leaving lower income communities, food desertification increases. They are replaced with fast food chains and unhealthy quick options. So these are thought out processes. We're understanding today that it's not a natural phenomenon, but a social and economic one. Hence why we're going to use the word apartheid instead of desert. Food is not lacking. It's the political will to fairly distribute the food, regardless of a recipient's ability to pay, race, or social class is where we have the issue. Beatrice Beckford, she is one of my favorites. She was talking to Why Hunger, and this was a quote from her. I'm going to read it aloud. It is about a system of food apartheid in Black and brown communities across the country, like the Bronx, New York, Jackson, Mississippi, and Baltimore, Maryland, where potentially sanctioned redlining restricts access to healthy food. It is about the food justice movement's inability to name race and anti-Blackness as the root of systematic food and land oppression, and further the food justice movement's lack of a mass-based strategy grounded in organizing and direct action. So as I said before, the system is not broken. It is working as it was designed to work, concentrating wealth and power into the hands of the few and sacrificing the many, like we see across the board with health. It happens in food, it's happening with education, it happens with housing. So it's right on the same. So we're going right back to those inequities like we discussed in the beginning. The system of segregation that relegates certain people to food abundance and others to food scarcity. If you're a Black child in America, you are twice as more likely to go to bed hungry. Remember that quote, it's there, it will be around for a lot longer, it's been here for years, we need to change it. If we start to see food insecurity, which is a change and a decrease in food consumption caused by our pre-existing policies and social constructs, we can begin to dismantle those to lastingly increase individual food security. So another statistic here, 13.1 million children under 18 are food insecure. So food insecurities in children lead to, of course, lower grades, tardiness to school, obesity, low physical health, low mental health. These are things that we know. So what do? How do we start dismantling these things? How do we increase individuals' food security? So as I'm researching and I'm doing my part, so of course, localizing our food sources. We've all been talking about that. Everyone understands how important it is to use the agriculture in your area. So localizing our food sources. Of course, growing our own produce, strengthening and sharing economy, supporting mobile produce stands, we have to take matters into our own hands as a people. Cooperative, there's a ton of different ways that we can make small changes and differences. Another statistic, excuse me, 1 in 6 children live in food insecure homes in the US. So in my work, as Jolie stated earlier, I try to keep food insecurity at the focus. I'm working with my team to change the culture, the way of thinking. I say on all my calls, if we want different, we have to do different. So what does that look like for our food bank? What does that look like for our pantry network? How do we supply for our community here and, you know, really hone in and figure out what they need? What is going to make them thrive? So if that is sitting with the Syrian community members to learn what's best for their bodies, if that's pushing culturally appropriate food in the right areas, if that is delivering or distributing with a sense of dignity and encouragement. We want to break these generational ties to our services. You know, we're here for now, and we want to be here to help people, but this is not a long-term. Food banks, we want them to disappear. We don't want people to need this food. You know, we understand that it's a service that we provide, but as the number grows every year, it's disheartening. It is, to know that so many people still need our services and what we do here. So if it's turning our participants into employees, whatever it may be, what can we do on our part that can change these, like I said, break these generational ties to what we have and what we do.
Tara, I just wanted to draw your attention to the chat. There has been a question presented.
I don't know how to see it, Ola.
Okay.
Sorry.
No, that's okay. I can read it for you.
Please.
Read it for you.
Thank
Sure.
you. Thank you.
Yes, so this question is from Dr. Andrea Grana Mosley. She
Okay.
says, how do you feel this has changed post-COVID? And I think that's in regard to the last slide that you presented.
How has food insecurity changed? Well,
Yes.
I mean, I can give you kind of a COVID update of how we've reacted, if that would help. So I started the first week of the COVID pandemic with Second Harvest Food Bank. And of course, already I was blown away by the number of people we were serving, the amount of food we were distributing, but a pandemic was hitting. What does that look like? How do we keep up? What do we do? So of course, we've seen spikes across the board. We've seen spikes in participants needing help. We've seen spikes in pantries closing because they run by, you know, volunteers that are normally high risk or higher age. We seen spikes in food prices. So we have to purchase our food. So we're getting it from vendors and they're raising their prices because there's such a, you know, a need. So we've seen spikes across the board. It's scary. It's still scary. I mean, COVID, we have distributed, our fiscal year just ended. Last fiscal year, we distributed, I believe it was 9.4 million pounds of food. The end of this fiscal year, we distributed 11.8 million pounds of food. So, you know, it's wonderful here at the food bank because that's what we're here to do. We want to distribute food and as much as we can. But like I said, it kind of pulls at your heart when I have to say that number because it is such a the number is huge. The amount of food that we are pushing out of here and that people need to sustain and just live a, you know, a regular healthy life it's crazy. So yeah, we've had a lot of support during COVID just from our community partners and donors and volunteers. Our pantry network has remained very strong. We are worried about a lot of our participants. School has ended, you know, 3 months early. So we're used to having to, you know, supply extra food during the summer months. But now how do we get the money to supply for these extra 3 months while kids are home? You know what I mean? So it's really just looking deep into our programs, figuring out how quickly we can make adjustments to meet the need. But I would say, you know, I'm happy that my staff has, you know, been unwavering. They have been here. They have been doing their job over and beyond. We have been, of course, protecting ourselves to make sure that no one gets sick, because if we shut down here, how many people does it affect? If someone gets sick here, how many, you know, families and go without eating? So it's very important to us that we are following CDC guidelines, but still, you know, pushing along. And like I said, having these conversations with community just helps bring awareness to what we're doing, and we really, really appreciate it here at the food bank.
Thank you, Katara. It looks like she has a follow-up question. You may get to this in another slide, so I want to acknowledge that, but I'll read it for you. It says, do you feel incorporating churches in a program for fresh food / veggies can ease some of the need?
Incorporating a church program, it said?
Yes.
So we
churches,
definitely
yeah.
use faith-based program. We use faith-based organizations, excuse me, in our volunteer efforts. So we have, you know, Life Church that comes in with, I think it's 10 to 12 volunteers when we have our senior pack days. We distribute to 2,500 seniors per month in different parts of the Valley. And that is a box full of staples and produce that we pack, and then we distribute door to door to them. And we do have faith-based organizations that come in and help with that. We have a lot of our faith-based organizations, they host pantries out of the churches. So that's beautiful. You know, if they're willing or able to take more produce, that's good. We are actually, you know, during this time, like as I said, we were getting a lot of donations. So it was, how can we make not only us strong here, but our pantry network strong? So we work with 250 actually pantries that get the food out to community. We're the distributor to the pantries, pantries distribute to community. So we need to make sure that they are supported and strong and able to withstand the volume. So we have put into our latest grant to receive over 80 coolers and freezers for the pantry network so that they are able to take more fresh produce and products of, you know, meat, cheese, eggs, things that are really going to sustain someone. So that's kind of the direction that we are moving in. Hopefully post-COVID. Yeah, good. So I know that Sharon is going to get to this, but I just wanted to give just a broad idea on how we can tackle some of these issues. And I believe it starts with bringing Black people back to the land. So 100 years ago, around 14% of farms in the United States were owned by Black Americans. Today, only 1%. Only 1%. Another number that makes me extremely sad. Extremely, extremely sad. Only 1%. As African Americans are not recognized for their role in establishing the U.S. as a nation is reason enough why we as a people are kept out of land ownership. The current food system was built on the labor of 12.5 million skilled African farmers who were taken and forced from their homeland here. Land ownership is over 98% white, so racism is most definitely embedded in the food system. To me, I believe food is as political as it gets. If we are talking about growing food, who has access to food, sharing resources around food, we have to understand that the system needs to be done correctly. And at this moment, the system is not right. Civil rights organizer Fannie Lou Hamer, I hope you've heard of her. If you have not, that is another homework assignment for you. You need to research her. She is a force in every way possible. She is, she was an activist around women's rights and voting. She led a lot of economic and agricultural changes. She started the Freedom Farm Cooperative. So she is a force when we are talking about bringing Black people back to the land. Her quote is, "If you have 400 quarts of greens and gumbo soup canned for the winter, no one can push you around or tell you what to do." Now I know that sounds, you might have to think about it for a minute, and you may, I'm gonna read it one more time. If you have 400 quarts of greens and gumbo soup canned for the winter, no one can push you around or tell you what to do. So clearly, I mean, why I connect with her so much is because she understood that in order for us to free ourselves as a people, we must feed ourselves. We have to take that power away from them. So as I stated before, our Black ancestors have always been leaders in the sustainable agriculture and food justice movements, and we must continue to lead. So if that is owning our own land, growing our own food, educating our own youth, participating in our own healthcare and justice systems, those are the sources of real power and dignity. So Black folks are brought here with all these growing skills and techniques that were stripped from us. They were stripped during slavery and taken, and we don't get the credit for them, you know, for over years and years. We put our hard work into developing these wonderful, like I said, techniques for how to make farming easier, to how to incorporate things like nitrogen into the soil, how to build up when you don't have the best medium to grow in. So these are all African techniques that came with us, that we taught our slave owners and people to utilize, and we're shut out of the conversation at this point. So I want you to understand, so I'm on a lot of different boards, and I talk with a lot of different people about, oh, how do we bring Black people back to it? And I'm looking to have some Black farmers, and I want to, and how can I help? And I want you, I think the root of it, or understanding behind it, is that for Black people to be involved with the land, there's a heavy stigma around that. We think about sharecropping, we think about slavery, we think about being forced to be outside for hours and hours. Even as I talk with my girlfriends on the phone, I'm in the garden and I'm doing my thing, and they love to see when I'm posting my harvesting and what it looks like. But for them to go out there and do it, it's such a, why would we want to do that? Our grandparents did that. Why do we can just go and buy, you know, like, it's just the idea behind it is so, there's so much trauma wrapped in it. So I think that there's a lot of work, social and emotional work, that Black people have to go through personally to get back to the land. So I think white people understanding that trauma will make it a lot easier for you to have these conversations. And then just a little story, a little bit about me, my story and my work. I stand on the platform of what's healthy grows. I use that little blurb in all aspects of my life, because I believe that if we really pour into something, it will grow and flourish. So, and that's pouring in positivity, that's pouring in knowledge, that's pouring in education, that is pouring in good relationships. So all of those things will help us to grow. So how I kind of got started in this work, I knew this was for me. I think I pulled a carrot out of the ground 4 or 5 years ago, and I knew that I had to be reconnected. I was home. I loved just seeing or understanding the fact that I could put a seed into the ground and then ultimately supply and provide for my family. So that really wrapped me into it. So I knew in order for me to have position or even a seat at this table, especially in this community, I had to educate myself. So in order for me to stand with the white women who have, you know, farmed and gardened their whole life, organizations like Rodale and that run these farms, in order for me to even be recognized or allowed into these rooms, as I said before, I had to educate myself. So I expanded outside of the Valley. I wrapped myself in PASA conferences. I'm on the PA Women of Ag board. I went to the National Farmers Union retreat in San Diego. I will be attending the Soul Fire Farm immersion next summer, so I'm very excited about that. Yes, that was a big one. I'm very excited about that. So just expanding outside and seeing what other organizations, other communities are doing, how other Black people are getting involved in this work is what I had to do. Locally, I knew I had to become a master gardener. How am I going to get as much, how am I going to build up myself enough on paper? And I know it's sad to have this conversation, but this is what Black people have to do. We have to go over and beyond. I can't just come to the table and say I have these skills and I come from a family of gardeners and farmers. That won't get me the seat that I need. You won't trust me, you won't believe it. So therefore I had to really educate and get some certifications and things that you like to see in order to convince people that what I have to say or what I could bring to the table is valuable. So locally, I got my Penn State Master Gardener certification. I am on the board of Wildlife Conservancy. I positioned myself to be an advocate and a voice by being a part of the system. I now run a 60,000 square foot facility here, food bank, and I also direct a 40-acre farm in Emmaus, the seed farm. So I had to really position myself to be a part of the system so that I could implement my change. Okay, and then this is just my contact information. So if you have any questions or concerns, please send me an email. We can have a conversation around it. I'm very, very open to all of that. I do want to, I know it's important, or my husband always mentions that we have to have a call to action. What are we gonna do? What are we doing this for? What are the next steps? What can you do? How can you help? I think for the liberation of our people, we need to do something today. It can be something as small as join a urban farming Facebook community. It can be planting a tomato plant. It can be figuring out how you can lease an acreage or an acre of your land to a Black or a brown person. It can be giving money to organizations like Soul Fire Farm, the Seed Farm. As Julie started with, you have to educate yourself. It's your responsibility to read and see and reach out. It's not our responsibility here. We're letting you know where we stand and how, disproportionately it is. So now it's your job to stand up. However we can help you with that, we are here. But my call to action is that you do at least one small thing today.
Thank you so
Thank you.
No problem. Any questions or?
Yeah, there actually is one more question before you wrap up.
Yeah.
So Kimberly Brown says, thank you for presenting today. Her question is, our pilot of a farm to corner store program showed that fresh fruits and vegetables prominently displayed in corner stores would sell quickly.
Mm-hmm.
As a starting point, can we grow that flow of produce?
Absolutely, I would say. We're working on that, utilizing the seed farm, actually, some of the unused land for cooperatives, or even just tying it into the food that we're growing for our cooperatives, doubling that, and then being able to send half of those products or sell half of those products to the bodegas in the neighborhood or the corner stores in the neighborhood, because you're right. They do sell out quickly. People want them. People are, you know what I mean? They're begging to have fresh produce on their tables. So if we can be a part of that in any way, that is definitely on the table. I would invite you to be a part of the Seed Farm Advisory Committee meetings when we're discussing this stuff. If you have any feedback or skill or knowledge around how we can implement that, please. We are here for it. We are definitely here for it. Anyone else? Are we good? We're going to move on to Julie. You got it?
Okay. Yes. Thank you. Thank you so much, Katara. I'm going to go briefly go over Sharon Fraser's bio, which I neglected to do in the beginning of this webinar. So Sharon has 25 years of experience in accounting and systems control. She is also, and related to this webinar, a certified health coach and master transformational coach, where she assists individuals and helps them to optimize their health and well-being. She also owns Eat Well Consulting, a health and wellness LLC. And if you go to Sharon's Facebook page, you can see some webinars, which are just amazing. And you can see how eating well affects our health. Sharon earned her Bachelor's of Science degree in accounting from Allentown College of St. Francis de Sales and her MBA from DeSales University. Sharon serves on several boards in different capacities as follows. She's president for the Martin Luther and Coretta Scott King Memorial Project, doing business as the Freedom Memorial, a board member of Resurrected Community Development Corporation, a treasurer for Promise Neighborhood. Sharon serves as a City of Allentown Human Relations Commissioner and is a former chairperson of the City of Allentown Redevelopment Authority. Thank you for being with us, Sharon. Are you muted, Sharon? Whoops. Are you muted? I think Sharon needs to unmute.
So Sharon, you are unmuted, but we can't hear you. So there might be an issue with your audio. Sharon? Yeah, I think there's an issue with your audio. Let me see if I can troubleshoot that for you. Thank you all for your patience. One of the things that you can do is down at the bottom where it says, bottom of your screen, there should be a control for start video. You see like a little picture of a video camera. So you can click the arrow up and go where it says video settings. Do you see that, Sharon? I'm going to share my screen so that you can see it, just in case you can't see it. Ah. Okay, here. Okay. Up at the top. Mine's at the top right now, but you can, yours is probably going to be at the bottom where it says start video. Take this little arrow down, hit video settings. There's me. Hit where it says audio. Okay. You're gonna wanna hit test mic. Still not working. Another thing that you can do to troubleshoot is to fall off of the call. So like end yourself on the call and then get back on. Okay, thank you all so much for your patience. I promise you we tested this for you all earlier today too. It worked. I don't know why did I always think that when there's really powerful and meaningful information to be shared, there's always something, you know, in the ethers trying to prevent it from happening. So if ever you are in a situation where that's happening, just know what you have to say is really important and it should be said by any means necessary. Okay, let's see. Sharon. Okay, I see you've come back on.
Can you hear me now?
Yes. Yes, we can. That's perfect. Okay, great.
Thank you. Oh boy. All right. Hi everyone. Sharon.
Hi.
Fraser. Let me get my screen, share screen, so we can start right away. Can you see me also? See the screen?
Yes, that's perfect. That's perfect.
Okay, great, great. Whew, that made me nervous a while ago, not being able to communicate. Oh boy. Well, hello everyone. Thank you for being here. I'm Sharon Fraser, and you heard my bio. I'm a health coach and a transformation coach, and what I bring to the table is quite a few years of experience in dealing with people with type 2 diabetes and all the remnants of, I would say, partially slavery. So let me go to my second screen. Okay, so what my agenda is for today, first, we already did introductions. And the second thing we're going to talk about, how did we get here? A little bit of a historical perspective. And then we're going to talk about the Americas a little bit. And then the next thing is the lack of health and well-being and my ideas of what we can do. Go in the wrong direction. So before Africans came to this country, we were basically hunter-gatherers, meaning we kind of, everyone with the diet world knows about the paleo diet. Well, that's what basically people in Africa did. They ate roots and tubers and corn, not a lot of meat, lot of fresh fruits, and they'll occasionally hunt for game. And then, you know, in the early 1600s, slavery started, and we get to the point where millions of people have been shipped from their homelands into strange countries, treated terribly, and made to produce and work and grow. And we're going to talk about America now, and grow the America. So America was built on free labor, basically. And with that, there was a whole generation of people who have suffered. They lost their heritage, lost their identity, and were treated very, very badly. So slaves were always starving, right? They got the scraps from the master's table. The diet was unhealthy. You know, if they had a little patch of land to grow anything, you know, we read now that they actually brought seeds and some tubers in their hair. They plant that in their hair and brought some of their indigenous foods here. And so they kind of sometimes could grow some vegetables, but that most of that land was used by the plantation to grow corn or cotton. So, and the food that they ate was high in starch, you know, in a lot of ways, I'll say somewhat what has evolved to the typical American diet, which is high in carbohydrates and bad for you. And their lifespan was shortened because of that. So if you can look at these pictures, you can see it's the insides of the cow, it's carbs, it's cornbread, it's overcooked cabbage. I don't know what that other thing on the side looked like, pig feet or something like that. So they got the entrails and the ends and the parts that the master would not eat, right? And because of that, their health was affected. And what has happened over time is that this food that they ate, they were, you know, ingenious people. They created it. They did so much good stuff that it tastes good, right? If you now have a plate of soul food, it doesn't taste bad. It tastes good, but it's really not really good for you. But at the same time, they created something out of nothing, and that's what sustained them through slavery. So I'm gonna let us watch this little video that I found on YouTube that I think will tell a really good story of what has transitioned for African American people and even people of other, what happened? Oh yeah, it's going. People of other ethnic races that have come to this country. Okay, here we go. It's not very long,
Sharon,
it's about 7 minutes. Can you see it?
Yes, so we can't see it yet. I think something that you are going to have to do is go back. Let me see.
Tell me what I have to do.
So I'm going to request remote control of your.
Okay, great. Go ahead.
And let me see. I haven't done that before, so let me see how that is going to work. Okay. No, that's not helping. Okay, so what you'll have to do is stop your sharing, and you're going to have to share your entire screen and also click the box on the bottom that allows for audio.
Okay, so I'm going to have to do what? Share my entire screen.
Yes. So you'll stop sharing this screen.
Okay. See when your technology are you still in control of the screen? Okay.
No, I just stopped it so you can do it again. You can. So when you go to
What?
share your screen, there should be options.
Okay. This is not funny. Hold on. I'm not seeing. Okay. Oh, here we go. Okay, so at share screen, go ahead.
Yeah, so share the entire screen, and there's a box at the bottom that says share computer audio.
Okay, so
You want to click that box as well.
share computer audio. Polls, chat, share screens, pause, reactions. Where is the thing for share computer audio?
So hit
Is it by the mute button?
No, when you click to share your screen, so in the middle, do you see where the green button is to share screen?
Mm-hmm.
So click
Yes.
that.
Yes, I
that.
did.
Okay, and then when you open that up, there should be options for how you can share your screen. And so at the top, it should be blue highlighted and should say screen. You see that?
Nope, I don't. Okay, here we go. Share. Okay. And
Now,
at
so
the
I
top,
hold on. I think you.
the screen is shared again. I can see that.
Okay, so try clicking the video link. I don't know if you hit everything that you needed to do that.
Let me try this one more time. If not, I'll just let it go. Can you see the video now?
No, so okay, you'll have to. It's okay. So we'll just have to try it one more time. Okay, so we're gonna stop this share.
Hold on a minute. Hold on.
So what you'll have to do is when you hit the green button, just press it and don't press it one time, and then
Yes.
another box should pop up. Do you see a box that says screen, whiteboard, iPhone, iPad? And then it should have all of your windows that you have open on your.
Oh, here go. Here, share components sound.
Okay, and then you want
minorities. And what you see over here
Can you see
is a
now?
graph
Yes.
of what's
Okay, let
called
me press
glucose
start it
intolerance,
over.
or what can be considered.
Hold on. Sorry, guys. That's what happened when you're not. Okay.
All right. So let's talk about soul food, and notice that's a question. Question mark. Because studies show that the diets of African Americans are comparable to standard Western diets in composition in terms of the amount of protein that African Americans eat, the amount of fat, and so on and so forth. But because of something called thrifty gene complexes, Western-style diets have been shown to cause higher levels of disease in African Americans and other racial and ethnic minorities. And what you see over here is a graph of what's called glucose intolerance, or what can be considered pre-diabetes, versus people living in West Africa. And the West Africans are in yellow, and people living in the United States and Britain eating a typical Western-style diet in green. And West African diets are traditionally plant-based diets. They're low in fat. They contain very little meat and no dairy. You can see that people eating a West African style diet have a very low incidence of both pre-diabetes and actual diabetes, whereas those eating the Western style, typical American British style diet, it's off the charts. The diet makes a huge difference. So-called soul food is peculiar to the African American community. Soul food typically includes things like chitlins, oxtails, neck bones, pig's feet, and other high-fat, high-salt, and sugar-laden unhealthy foods. There's a recent study called the REGARDS study, which stands for Reasons for Geographic and Racial Differences in Stroke. This study was huge. It looked at over 30,000 participants, both black and white Americans aged 45 years and older. And what it showed was that most of the increased stroke risk seen in African Americans can be explained by differences in diet. The study showed that the so-called, what they call the Southern diet, and that's a diet that features heavy consumption of fried foods, organ meats, processed meats, full-fat milk, and sugar-sweetened drinks, while downplaying and fruits, salads, and whole grains, increased stroke risk by 63%. Calling it the Southern diet is just a polite, politically correct term for soul food, okay? And if I were to ask you guys, what is the leading cause of disability in African American males between the ages of 25 and 50, how many of you would say gunshots? How many would say motor vehicle accidents? Do you know the leading cause of disability in young African American males is stroke from untreated hypertension? That's crazy. That's absolutely crazy. And again, like I tell my patients, you might think you're a ladies' man, but it's pretty hard to pull the ladies when you're dragging one half of your body and talking out the side of your mouth. Hey, baby, what you talking about? Nobody's interested, okay? This study also showed that the plant-based diet, which included cruciferous vegetables, green leafy and other vegetables, fruits, beans, and whole grains, reduced stroke risk by 20%. So I want you guys to understand that what we call soul food is not soul food, it is actually plantation food. West Africans brought to America were forced to eat the literal garbage of the plantations on which they were enslaved. Now, yes, they showed ingenuity and resolve and did their best to transform this refuse that they were made to eat into something that was acceptable. Unfortunately, after we were freed, we claimed what is essentially a dietary vestige of slavery and christened it soul food. These foods are not soul food, they are health-destroying plantation food, and we need to let it go because they are.
Let's get back
Finally tonight, one man's journey into his own personal history.
Sharon, you probably are going to want to exit out of that screen because otherwise it's going to
Africa to today. Jeffrey
showing
Brown
videos
back.
and the
Okay, here we go.
There you go.
Okay, so we're back. So that was just what I will say confirmed, explaining what happened to African American people who were enslaved and what the food did to their bodies or is doing to our bodies now. And the thrifty gene definition is, thrifty genes are genes which enable individuals to efficiently collect and process food to deposit fat during periods of food abundance in order to provide for periods of food shortage. So what African Americans learned in slavery and their body adjusted to the situation they were in was that this kind of eating and this kind of starvation and then eating bad food got into the DNA of African people and is now manifested in just how a lot of us live. So what it has produced is a lot of illnesses: diabetes, heart disease, stroke, and I'll add brain disease to that now, because now we're dealing with these occurrences of Alzheimer's and dementia. And it plagues our people when it comes to diet, health, and wellness. But with disproportionate rates of heart disease, as I said, diabetes and all that, we need to change. This has to change, and we need your help to put this change in place. So some of the other devastating losses that impact African American health, right? In some cases, we lost hope. There was definitely no security. There were millions of deaths. Families were separated, dragged apart. Children were sold. There was no sense of belonging. Dignity was lost. Language was lost. Culture was lost. Financial security. They were imprisoned. Definitely no education. lack of housing due to redlining, jobs, access, well-being, freedom, heritage, bloodline, health, and history. Now, how do a people survive with so much loss? Racialized loss, which what happened to people of African descent who were farmers and noble people before they got here, creates trauma. And it takes 14 generations to overcome trauma and abuse that has already infiltrated DNA of our African enslaved people. And we're only 2 to 3 generations past now. So what happens, what you see sometimes in people of color is mental health problems. It's a sense of, you know, they're trying and things are not working out. And on top of it, when the SNAP and all those programs were put in, welfare, it was put in with the idea that the woman is going to take care of the family. The man had to leave. How can you be a country with family values and the man who is the father of those children are not allowed in the house to be a part of his family? This is systematic destruction of a race of people. And that has been incorporated into the day-to-day life of America. I don't want to go through the video thing again, so I'm passing this video. I'm going to the next slide. In Maslow's hierarchy of needs, right? We have food, water, sex, sleep, homeostasis, and excretion at the very bottom. So that's physiological. Then we get to the next need going up that triangle. We come to safety of body, employment, resources, morality of the family, health, and prosperity. Where are the African American and people of color on this continuum? Some of us have done very well. Yes, we have. We've been through 3 generations, and for most African American people, their parents will do anything to sacrifice to make sure the next generation is better. So I can say for my generation, even though I was not born in America, I was born in Jamaica, my parents went through hell and high water to make sure I had everything I needed, right? But that's not what happens everywhere. With what has happened in the Americas, I think that those opportunities have been stymied. Where I grew up, my teachers looked like me, they spoke like me. That's a different case in this country. A lot of our children don't see themselves in the classroom or in the running of this country. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay, great. Thank you. Thank you. Good. So one of the things that have kept African American people, I think, steadfast in surviving is their mental resiliency. Even though that resiliency has been challenged, it's challenging, and some of us are doing the best we can. But that need to succeed and the need to that attitude of we're gonna find a way to make it work has been instilled in them. That's why slavery ended. That's why we had people like Martin Luther King. That's why we had people like Malcolm X. These are people who, with all that they face, they pushed and pushed. And I would say in a lot of ways they've been successful, but we have a long way to go, right? We're still growing and moving despite the challenges. Each generation determined to leave their children better than before. So what, in my opinion, as a health coach and dealing with people I see all the time who come in here with diabetes and all the problems that are definitely related to food, not having fresh food, having a palate that is prone to like salt and fat and sugar, having easy access food like McDonald's and Wendy's, that all they serve is stuff that has bad fat, high carbs, terrible meat, and for cheap, right? And finding that the US of A subsidize those kind of bad foods. High fructose corn syrup and the corn industry is a big systematic industry in this country that's supported by the US government. What our children eat in schools is terrible. There was some changes made in the last administration, and that was just thrown out the door when this new administration come on. Instead of our kids eating healthy food, everything they have is processed, it's white bread, it's bad cheese, and cereal that's high with sugar. How can a child learn or sit quietly in a situation like that? It's not possible. Okay, so some ideas I've had, bring back home economics in school and emphasize cooking healthy. Okay, community gardens on every vacant lot. I mean, Katarah talk about growing your own food. This is one way that would really improve the social well-being of people in economic deprived areas. Establish shopping areas in food deserts with lots of fruits and vegetables. Subsidize pricings for fruit and vegetable, right? Just like how the US government can subsidize everything else, they can do that also. Subsidize CSA pricing. It's difficult and expensive to grow organic food, right? What I tell my clients when they come in is just start eating fruit and vegetable. I don't care, for now we don't talk about organic because organic is expensive. And I think it's intentionally because of the cost of growing those foods in a way that doesn't use chemicals. It costs much more, right? So that could be a way to subsidize so that when Rodale come into the city, yes, they accept SNAP, but it's still $4 a pound for something. So if the government subsidizes food, it brings it down to $2 a pound. So they have more SNAP money still after, even when they buy good food. Minimize processed food in schools and lunch programs. Even the summer program, yes, it's great for the kids to get some summer food, but what they're eating is awful. It's absolutely awful. All right. Community clinics would teach culturally competent cooking and nutrition classes, right? And another thing I think which is very important that the medical system could do is implement and prescribe a structured health solution first for pre-diabetics, heart disease, and elevated blood pressure before offering medicines. Because we know, and at least I know, and I try to share that once a person come in on a diabetic medicine, they do not have lifestyle changes, they will never, ever get healthy.
Sharon, I just wanted to bring your attention to the fact that there's a question that was presented.
Okay, great.
So it's from Andrea. She says, you mentioned she said yes first. I want to make sure you know that. Snaps. So she says, you mentioned it takes 14 generations to overcome this trauma, but is this type of trauma the type that will repeat if left untreated, ? Is there any research, parentheses, that you can share later about this topic?
Yes, there is, and I will provide that I'll be able to provide it after the webinar.
Okay.
All right. I'll get the website to you and so forth where you can you can read up on it yourself. Okay.
That's perfect. Thank you.
You're welcome. So my question to the participants on the call is, how do you plan to show up? And when I say plan to show up, I mean as people who are in the field of, some of you are going to be doctors, some are already in the system in terms of working in the health field. When you see a person of color walking in that room, where is your head? Where are you? Is it okay, they're just gonna be, not changed, so let me just give them the pill or the prescription? Or is it gonna be a question of, let me not judge, let me be open to what I'm gonna hear, and let me try and find the best solution possible, even if it's difficult? Because we know change is difficult, and change takes time, right? So most people who come, I see with health problems, they try in the beginning, and then they self-sabotage, and then they come back to the process, So it takes you being patient, you understanding how the psychology of human nature, and really and truly loving people, really having a deep-seated love for humanity, right? To start caring. So what I'm really asking is, we cannot follow the continuous disease model we have of caring for people right now. That is not going to help anybody. As a matter of fact, it's really harmful to people of color, because when they get stuck on a pill and start taking that pill, their health will never improve, because nothing has changed. They haven't been taught to do anything else other than take the pill drop their blood, their sugar level a little bit, and then they eat the same thing all over again. So I'm just asking you to think about, when you're in a position that you can make a difference, how will you view and approach and try to change the system so that all people are treated equally? That's what my presentation is all about. So if there are any questions, I'm willing to answer.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Sharon and Katara. Just to like immediately piggyback on the question that you just asked, Sharon, of course, I want everyone to feel free to raise their hand and to write questions in the chat. But I wanted to invite the students who are in the fellowship. They are all on. So every student who's in the fellowship, I really want to invite you all to answer Sharon's final question about how are you planning to show up, particularly because you all are future healthcare providers and practitioners. So you can choose to unmute yourselves and verbally express, or you can type it in the chat. Please introduce yourself too.
Okay. My name is Emmeline. So for me, I think with what Sharon said, that sometimes you educate patients and like they might like start and then like not go through with it. But I think just every single time that you get them in the office, rather than just focusing on the medication, focusing on educating, and even if like they don't follow your instructions, maybe the next time you educate them, they will. So it's important to like keep going at it and keep educating, because maybe that would help.
My name is Chelsea. Going off of what Emmeline said, I'm a nursing student at DeSales, but I think it's super important to keep communication open and not just think someone understands what you just explained to them, or not just assume that they know what carbohydrates are. I think it's really important to educate and just have them teach back, and just rather than just speaking to them and leaving them with all these unanswered questions and information they've never even heard about before.
Hi, my name's Noelle, and I agree with both what Emmeline and Chelsea said. And to like add on to what they said, I feel like it's important to also demonstrate to patients that you're there to support them, and you're there because you want, like, the information you're providing to them is because you want what's best for them and what's best for their health. So kind of to just express that you understand that it's difficult to make these life choices, but you're there for them as a support person in their life.
I also want to randomly add, I think it's really important not to scold patients too. I feel like as a student, I've seen a lot of patients be scolded, and that doesn't make you want to learn, and it doesn't make you want to do anything different. It's just embarrassing, and it makes you just feel worse about the situation. You don't really want to change anything then.
That's very true, Chelsea. They won't come back.
I think that's what Sharon was just saying. I just wanted to thank you for saying that, because I think we patronize people, and especially people of color at times, you know. So it's not telling them what they ought to be eating, or it's not, you know, or assuming that they don't know what to eat. It's having open conversations. So thank you for saying that. And I deal with that as I'm dealing with the pantries and the people who are coming. It's not, you know, you don't want to scold them. You don't want to make them feel like they are less than, or children, or not, you know. They know what they're supposed to be doing. They understand. They're the closest people to, you know, so they know.
And most of the time it's economics that's creating the choices that are there.
There you go.
So how do we, you know, even in a pantry, Katarah, make sure what they're getting is good stuff? You know what I mean?
Exactly.
You know, I'm showing them how to take, like I deliver vegetables to, like this evening when I leave here, I go to an organic farm in Bethlehem and get veggies and stuff, right? And some of the vegetables, the people at the church don't know what they are. So what I do is create a recipe. So they'll get a elongated eggplant and they'll say, what the hell is this? But I give them a recipe and show them how to cook it. So at least they can try it, you know, or give it to their children.
Absolutely. And you're right. It starts, like you said, with the food bank, the food that we're handing out. Instead of handing out a box of potatoes, how can I substitute that for a bag of potatoes? How can I substitute that then for sweet potatoes? How can I then include, you know what I mean? So it's us doing a lot of work. It's not just the people who have to change. It's more so, you know, that's the conversation. I love it.
The system, yeah. Anybody else?
I was going to add on to the patronizing aspect of it, is just actively asking what's getting in the way of you making this change, and really discussing like what those issues are, and also recognizing when you might not know what to do, but you can at least try to connect that person with someone else who might be able to help them out with that barrier.
That's true. It's also really important of the cultural competence when dealing with people. It's a good, I think it's important that people, if you're in a community that you're dealing with people of color, you immerse yourself in of who they are and the knowledge of their history and some of the life problems they may be facing. It really, when you meet somebody who maybe not look like you, but they can understand who you are, it really makes a difference to keep it helps to keep that communication open. A smile in your eyes, you know, we can't touch each other now, but it's really important that people see love in your face, kindness in your face, kindness in your attitude, when you deal, especially when you're dealing with personal stuff.
Awesome.
Hi.
Oh, go ahead. There you go.
Hi. Okay. So this is Nyambura. So I also wanted to add that I think something else that's important, especially, you know, when you're dealing with, you know, with anyone, you know, whether it's on this, you know, food security issue or any other thing, is just the power of sharing your story as well. I mean, most of us have been, especially with this, you know, with health. I know I have had, you know, with the knowledge that I've had, you know, perhaps changed the way I look at diet, you know, extra. So I've grown, right? So I think connecting by sharing, you know, your story and just letting the other person know that, you know, it's just not you. I was there, you know, maybe, you know, and I'm learning too, really, I mean, helps make that connection and, you know, and give people hope, knowing that, you know what, it's just not me, and learn from me. So I think sharing your story, your personal story, could also be something that would be helpful.
Thank you. I wanted to, and I'm doing a little bit of, like, I'm facilitating in a specific way right now, ladies, because I know that, like, we're focused on a much smaller group right now, which I think is great, because a lot of the names that I see are students. So I wanted to call on Migdalia, if she's still on, or did she just fall off? Oh, man. Okay, well, never mind. I think she just fell off. She is doing a project on food access, nutrition and food access. And so I know that she was going to follow up and try to interview with you ladies. So hopefully she pops back on and she can ask any questions she may have. One thing that I did want to bring up as we are waiting for others to offer questions is originally when the Bridging the Gap students were doing their community assessment, they noticed geographically the way that the grocery stores were located and what access to grocery stores look like in Allentown. And Katarah, you mentioned this, you know, the idea that there are a lot of corner stores and bodegas and not necessarily access to large grocery store, chain grocery stores. So one of the students brought that up, and her major concern was how that impacted people during COVID because of, how access was to deliveries and people needing to stockpile, and what impact that had on the local community not having access to those larger grocery stores. One of the things that was brought into conversation then was the people's comfort level with the bodegas and the corner stores and the smaller chain grocery stores where they know the people who own the store and who work there, versus large name grocery stores where they don't have that same level of comfort. I think that was confirmed for us when Jose and Yamalisa presented and talked about that neighborhood feel. So I'd just be interested to hear from both of you about what it looks like to provide larger access, but in a, like we say, culturally competent way, so that people still get that neighborhood feel that they're looking for, and that sense of belonging and connection.
I think farmers markets are really one of the best ways to connect with people like that. When people know where their food is coming from, it really makes a difference. And you can put in your own little private order if that's what you need. And if the farmer is growing something that maybe is not a lot of, but you can say, I used to eat this when I was a child. Do you do anything like this? So I think that's having farmers market around, especially in those neighborhoods. Everybody know Elias's supermarket at front. I've known him when I used to marry and I lived in Whitehall. He was my neighbor, right? And everybody that I 15, 20 years ago, you can go there at some point and see them. You know what I mean? The people who in the neighborhood, and you come into his store, he knows your name, he says hi, he tells which thing is really, really good this week, So that kind of personality or personal space give comfort to folks, and that's why he does so well, because he really treats his customers with respect and kindness, and it shows. They come and they buy. So I think we have more Eliases around, that will make a big difference. One of the things I also know, though, sometimes with the bodegas, that their fruits and veg are a little bit more pricey. Well, a lot more pricey.
Yeah.
And that's because I think part of it is that it's a supply and demand kind of thing for part of it. And also, they deal with spoilage and all that stuff. And there is not enough variety. They can't carry enough different assortments of people to choose. So if you come in and don't see exactly what you want, you just leave, And who wants to pay $1 for an apple? Really, right? So
Yes.
we have to find a way to change that, to shift that, so that folks have access and a wide variety. Raspberries, blueberries, all the good stuff, that really carry all the nutrients that they need to create a healthy body.
Yes, I'm on the same page as Sharon. I most definitely believe that farmers markets would be a huge plus, bringing them into the city, into the communities that it's needed. We know that Sundays, Emmaus has a farmer's market from 10 to 2. We know that Makunji is blessed with a farmer's market. We know that Sukun Valley. So we have all these places outside of the communities that actually need it. So I have to get in my car and drive 25, 30 minutes, but that's what I do. Who has the, how many people, when we're talking about this population, have the access? It's not on a bus route. You can't jump on a bus and take 2 hours to get to the farmer's market and hopefully get the product you need, to ride 2 hours back. And then you have children at home that are waiting on you, and you have It's a lot. So removing those barriers and coming into the community and making them uncomfortable for once, is what we need to do, I think. I think it's nice how Kellen, they have a kind of like a mobile market. We're working on that here at Second Harvest, on getting some type of mobile market where we're able to, pull into a community. You stop at their, say, local park, whatever it may be. You open up, you put out the produce, different stuff every week, something, you know what I mean? Exactly. So we're giving them option. You're explaining as they're coming over. You're telling them what yucca could be used for. You're explaining to them how okra could be used this way or that way. So I think, yeah, bringing it to the people, we have to do that. And like you were saying, Sharon, about the using the vacant lots for community gardens. I think that's a beautiful start. I mean, that's bringing it to the people instead of having these community gardens in the outskirts of the city and where, you know what I mean, where people don't have access. We need to make ourselves uncomfortable. That is the point of this conversation. Like, you have to be uncomfortable if you want to see change. We have to do something different. So,
and, you know,
yeah, I like it.
And connecting children to what they eat. I mean, most of these kids don't know how things are grown.
Yeah.
I mean, seriously, right? So, you know, no, the French fries don't just come out of McDonald's. It came from a potato that was grown far away, right? So we need to really teach the children. I mean, not that I think the other generation are lost, because that's not so, but I really think we have to impact the generation coming up right now. So, and food is medicine. Food is really medicine.
Yeah. It's exciting to me that food is becoming trendy again. Like, people want to live healthy. They want to, you know, eat all these homegrown organic things. They want, and it sucks that it had to be a publicity stunt, but if that's going to bring awareness to it, I'll take it. I'll take it. If it's going to shine light on the disadvantaged people and the ones who don't have that access, I'll take it. So,
and part of it, to Katarah, which and I know you know, is teaching them how to fish. You can grow tomatoes on your patio. You can put 2 kale plants in a thing and it'll serve you all summer. I'm serious. You know, it's true. You know, I'm not going to say it's not difficult, because when you don't grow up with something, it's difficult. But teaching people, you know, listen, this is how you can do this. And feed your family will make a difference.
Yes. Oh, Kimberly Brown said, can I read this?
Yeah.
Okay, it's in the comments. Kimberly said, teaching kitchens in the community and healthcare locations are one way to change and improve the medical approach to treating diabetes and other chronic health conditions. They also can function to provide access and education to families. I love that.
Of course.
In the community.
In the community.
Yes.
We used to get it at Resurrected Life Church, and she used to teach at, there's another lady who used to teach, I mean, we co-taught together sometimes at the Y, you know, helping, you know, it makes a difference. And you do, you know, if you're dealing with a lot of people who are from a Spanish background, you're bringing the right spices for them. You know, you bring in the right flavors for them, you know, or you get a Spanish mama to come and do the teaching class for you.
There
okay.
You go.
So I'm serious, you know, you have to meet people where they are and help them grow.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Yes, so I just want to, I think there's another comment there to Katarah, if you want to read that.
Yeah, Community Canvas is a program in the elementary schools to teach children in grades 3rd, 4th, and 5th about healthy foods, how to grow, cook, and enjoy it. Community Canvas. I'm going to look that up, but thank you for sharing that, Kimberly.
If there, another question that I have that I think would be an interesting thing to bring into conversation is about, you both mentioned, well, you know, Sharon, you mentioned in your presentation the idea that you talked about soul food, or you played the video of soul food, and you talked about how ways that we can work to change these, you know, dietary decisions and preferences. And then Katarah, you just mentioned that there are things that are becoming trendy now. And so I was curious if you two had any thoughts about how to capitalize on that. I know that there are some people who are implementing programs who find that it's very difficult to sell the idea of using fresh fruits and vegetables, or changing, like, you know, if you want to eat macaroni and cheese and fried this and fried that, like, how do you really help people feel like they have access to things? Like, once you give them access, how do you make people feel like they want to change their habits? And if you have any thoughts about that.
Well, let me, education is one way, but also individuals are afraid of change. Change is scary for anybody, right? So what I do is it's one thing at a time. Okay, so my first thing for my clients is breakfast. Okay, how can we make your breakfast a little different, a little healthier, right? So normally you stop at McDonald's, hash brown stuff. So let's see if we can give up McDonald's for 1 week. Okay, and I actually show them some other options for breakfast and work, because what happens is that eventually they feel better. Like, they're not eating McDonald's, so they feel better. Their sugar level, their energy don't just go up and then pop, and then they're tired and hungry again. Because they're having like a nice oatmeal breakfast with fresh fruit on top, with a little bit of maple syrup and cinnamon and vanilla. And it creates a different vibe in the body, and their energy is more sustained. So, it's not a magic pill, but transformation comes with small changes, big impact, right? So you start slow with people, but steady, continuous. You don't give up on them. If they fall back on McDonald's one day, you tell them it's okay. That's all right. It's you're learning that muscle has to get stronger. That muscle of saying, I don't want this fat and sugar, has to get stronger. Because you gotta remember, they've been doing it for so long. Sometimes you say, wow, okay. But you do one day at a time. Okay, just 2 times this week you're gonna eat this. Then you can eat McDonald's for the next 2. But then we change it to 3 times. So it is a continuous process of learning, and a continuous process of the person making a mistake sometime and coming back till eventually they get it. It's just like stopping to smoke or stopping to drink. It's 12 steps, remember, but you know how much time they would repeat those steps. So it's a learning process, but one I've learned with human beings, you never give up on a human being, never. So it's continually teaching. That's what you do. You continually teach until they get, and then especially if they have children and they know what they're doing is not adequate, and they don't want their children to do the same thing, that's when you really can impact a change in people, because they want their children to have a better life. Right?
Exactly. Yeah. That's all. Yep. I agree with everything Sharon just said. Absolutely. I mean, I lead by example. That's kind of how I do it. Every piece of content that I put out on social media, every conversation that I am in, I talk to people about growing food, about what that looks like, about supporting and supplying for their families. When I bring a gift to somebody, it's a seedling, a small plant. It's something that they can, build off of. I'm constantly, sharing my harvest. I'm constantly, getting new people involved with it. So I think just having the conversation, being comfortable with it. I think the more people see the example, the more they want to get on board. Like I said, Sharon has been doing this for years. So even when I moved into the Valley and I seen it in her right away. Every conversation, if I'm, she'd see me and my husband out, oh, I don't think that's too good for you. Or she would recommend something different. Or she does all the time. Maybe you should try, or, you know what I mean? So I picked up that and I start implementing that same behavior. So when I'm, you know what I mean? And it's not, like you said, patronizing people or making them, but there's other ways and there's other options, and let me show you, or let me, and people take to it. They want to learn it. They want to, I see more people that are excited to be a part of the change than are more resistant, which is nice. So me, it's more so, like I said, just leading by example and making sure that I am constantly sharing my resources and what I'm doing and how I'm doing it, and how I went from having, 4 container salsa gardens on my patio to having a full grown, I'm cooking, everything I cook is something that I've grown, you know what I mean? So it's exciting, and people want to see that journey and want to know how you got there. So sharing your story. We talk about that all the time through PNLV. So I think it is huge. That's how I contribute to it.
Very cool. Thank you both. I think unless we have any other questions, we may just go ahead and wrap up. So
Thank
yeah.
you so much. That was incredible. So much good information. Do you have anything else you want to add, either of you or anybody else? Because I want to announce next week's webinar, if you're all okay.
I'm okay.
Good.
Okay, so next week, the topic is going to be countering the conspiracy to destroy Black boys, interrupting the school to prison pipeline, and freedom schools. And our speakers are going to be, our presenters are going to be Pastor Gregory Edwards, Darian Colbert, and Justice Simpson. So this is going to be a whole other issue. So
That's right.
a whole other issue.
Not a systematic problem.
Right, right.
That's a deep one. That's a deep one coming up.
Oh. I have to kudos Promise Neighborhood for putting these on, because they're valuable, and it's important that community voices are heard, because you are the people who are in the neighborhoods are really in the heart of the problem, and that's where you need to find your answers. You know, the people have to give you the answers, because it's easier to implement if it comes from them. Right?
Oh.
No top down approach. It has to be bottom up. So
love it. Thank you, ladies, very much, Julie.
Thank you. I have to provide you. I will send a link, some information on the trauma for the student. All right.
Okay. Speak soon. Bye.
All right. Take care.
Thank you all.
Thank you all.
Bye.
Bye bye.